Right now I'm going to walk you through how to change a base cam and a module and a set of rockers on a 1MX or STX 36. Currently right now this bow has an A cam on it with the A cam yokes, the red high rockers, and a number 1 module, and it's set for 30 inches of draw length. I've got somebody that needs to try this bow out and set it up at 25 inches. That's going to require me to do a handful of things that we talked about earlier. I'm going to have to, number 1, change the base cam from an A to a B. I'm going to have to change the cam yoke, and then I'm going to have to take the bow down and also change the rocker. I'll carefully lay out the harness, cam set, spacers. I like to put the axles through there so I don't lose any spacers. That's pretty frustrating. You lose E-clips all the time, but to lose a spacer, yeah, you're pretty much never gonna find it. It's something your dealer might have, but like I said, a little pro tip, I like to put the axles through there, just keep everything together. Now, when changing base cams and modules, etc., I'm gonna give you a little pro tip here. Something that saved me a ton of time is actually take the entire harness, base cams, everything off, set it on a nice flat, clean surface, remove the cables completely from the module that's on there, put them on the module that you want to install, and then install that whole module with the cables already on it into your base cam. The reason why I do that is because some of the slots to access this cam to get at the module pegs and stuff are really small. And if you're not familiar with doing this all the time, it can be a bit cumbersome. And the last thing you want to do is miss a peg, miss a hub, or not get the cable in the track. So this just makes it a lot easier for you and a lot safer. Okay, now we've got the bow out of the press and it's on the bench. It's time to loosen up the pivot locks and the limb bolts. Remove the high red rocker for the A cam and install the medium, the green rocker, for the B cam. Now, when you take the pivot out, notice that there's going to be some grease on it. The reason why there's grease on the rocker is because it needs to rotate and flex within the pocket as the limb compresses on it while you draw the bow back. So it's common for some grease to be on there. If there's no grease on your replacement rockers for your B cam, A cam, or C cam when you're changing them out, put some grease on there. Slide it into place, slide the limb down on it, rotate the pocket retainer into place, snug it down, come back in the amount you went out on the limb bolt, snug that down, and repeat the process on the bottom. Now, with the high red rockers removed that go with the A cam and the medium green rockers installed that go with the B cam, I'm going to put the bow back in the press, bring it down, reinstall the harness, and then we'll get into changing cams. Now, of course, take the axle out, grab both the spacers, and set those off to the side with my E-clips and everything. And now I'm going to pop the cables off. I'm going to pop out the take-up cable on the top cam, and I'm going to get in here, I'm going to flip it over, I'm going to pop out the let-out cable on the top cam, mindful not to lose or gain any twists to the best of your ability. Okay, then I'll rotate this out, I'll take out the string, set the A cam off to the side. I'm going to install the let-out cable on the top cam. I'm going to install the take-up cable on the top cam. And now I'll install this module with both cables on it onto the base cam. Now, what you're going to find too is it's a lot easier to install the module with the cables already attached to it if you remove the cable stop. If you're using the limb stop, it won't be an issue because it's on the outside of the tracks, not the inside. So now that I've changed base cams, changed modules, and reinstalled the cables, now comes the time I have to install the yoke that's specific for the B cam. It'll be a slightly shorter yoke than the A cam due to the reduced diameter in the cam size. A cam yoke out. B cam yoke in. Now, in addition to color coding the rockers, from the factory we've also color coded the yokes with these twist ties. When you have a set of yokes that have green twist ties on them, therefore the B cam, the green module, has a red twist tie, it's for the A cam, the red module. A blue twist tie, it's for the C cam, the blue module. And that's the yoke installed. Now, I'll repeat the exact same process, but on the bottom cam. And there it is. We have our entire harness fully reassembled, modules changed, base cam changed, cables, modules reinstalled, and yokes changed. So now we're ready to move it over to the bow and then reinstall it. Okay, now with the modules installed on the B cam, the strings, cables, and string yokes reinstalled on the base cams, I want to reiterate why I chose to work on a nice, flat, clean, empty surface. Because number one, you're less likely to lose parts and pieces. We had 8 different set screws, 2 modules, E-clips, draw stops, spacers, axles, washers. You lose any of that stuff, it's gonna be tough to find these little tiny parts. So just work on a nice, open, clean, flat space, good lighting. Another reason too is these new yokes or new strings can always be really, really stiff if they've never been on a cam and it hasn't been cycled or shot. So it's really tough to keep them in the track. So it's a little less frustrating if you get everything on a nice wide open space here and get it all put together and seated before you try to put it on the bow. So now moving over to the bow, I'm gonna grab my spacers. The spacers from the factory are actually designed and engineered to work specifically with these cams. The cam has a recess over the bearing where the spacer can sit right into it, nice and flat. It's a little pocket there, so it makes assembly and reassembly super, super easy. And to make my life even easier, I'm gonna slide the axle through there just to keep everything together. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the next cam. Put my spacers in the recesses over the top of the bearings, gonna slide an axle in there, boom. Everything's nice and easy together, and I can move it over to the bow press without losing anything. So now I've brought the harness over. I'm gonna set the cams down into the limb grooves. I've compressed the bow just slightly, a little bit more beyond brace height. And a little pro tip here, now is the time to reinstall your cables in the Flexus AR. It's a lot easier to do it when it's in the press and there's no tension on them than when it's all loaded up. So don't forget to do that. I'm gonna show you a neat little trick, kind of the way I do it, So if you come on in here for a closer look, I'll show you how to feed these cables into the rollers really easily. Now with the cables fled into the Flexus AR, it's time to install the cams into the limb groove. With the spacers, axles, cams installed, now it's time for one last thorough check of all the cables, all the strings, making sure they're in the cam track, they're all in their respective posts before we let anything down. And before I always take the bow out of the press, no matter what I'm doing, if it was a full disassemble or just a simple timing or peep sight adjustment, I'm always going to look everything over before I remove it from the press. Done. And that's a cam swap and module swap and rocker swap to take an STX 36 from an A cam with a number 1 module at 30 inches and setting it up with a B cam with a number 9 module at 25.5 inches.